Hello everyone, I'm George from Ireland. So in this video I'm going to predict who will be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and I think it's going to be Rishi Sunak. I hope I pronounced his name properly. So at the moment he's Chancellor of the Exchequer. Now if you're not British, you might not know this is Finance Minister. So every country in the world calls it Finance Minister. In the UK it's Chancellor of the Exchequer. Usually people just say Chancellor for short. Confusingly, there are a few other jobs with the word Chancellor in the title, but this is the one we're talking about, the Finance Minister. So he's known as Rishi, partly because he's the saviour of restaurants and the licensed trade. There was Dine Out to help out, this scheme whereby Monday to Wednesday, if you ate out, then half your meal was paid for by the government, up to a certain level. I think if you're ordering dishes worth over £20, then that didn't apply. So obviously Boris Johnson's Prime Minister at the time, but unfortunately Bojo's on the ropes. The Conservatives are behind Labour by 3 points in the latest opinion polls. Not good news. Under a year after the election. They're about 4 years to go to the next one, so fall further and further behind. You might know that in the opinion polls, once a party wins, it tends to shoot up in the opinion polls, the honeymoon. So it shows a bit of a bandwagon effect. Oh, the Conservatives won? Well, I voted against them, but I'm a Conservative now. But anyway, so starts sky high, but then leeches away over the course of a parliament. And then, so you've had your honeymoon. After a few months, it starts to decline, and then recovery right before the next election. The question is, how long is that honeymoon? How long is that decline, and how deep is that decline? And how early does the recovery start, and how strong is the recovery? So really those are the three phases: the honeymoon, the decline, and the recovery, to see whether the governing party wins or not. So Bojo, he only took over as Prime Minister in July 2019, when Theresa May resigned, having repeatedly failed to get Brexit through. Now, as Bojo's sister, Rachel Johnson, unwisely vouchsafed, well, the journalist and I just couldn't keep it in. As a toddler, he fantasized about being world king, and she's only a year younger than him. So he finally got to the top of that greasy pole, and it was very greasy indeed for him. Some of the things he had to do and say in order to get there. There was a thumping electoral victory, the best Conservative result in terms of seats since 1987, but it all went very badly wrong in record time. His honeymoon was gone in 3 months, and he's thinking of another honeymoon, and that's another story. So along came coronavirus in March and ruined everything. So I think it had to be said the government has mishandled it spectacularly. Various Conservative MPs have said so. The government's always been changing its advice. Admittedly, the situation's been changing. And another thing to mention is that Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland, England are all doing different things on this. So Bojo's the head of the United Kingdom, but particularly England, because of the devolved administrations. There's been lassitude, incompetence, inattention to detail, disdain for expertise, mendacity, all aggravating the situations. It's been a public relations catastrophe. So this is all hugely exacerbated the coronavirus pandemic, and the economic fallout has been greatly aggravated by the Prime Minister's malapertness. So another point is that Bojo, he assured the public a year ago that he had an oven-ready deal with the European Union. Now it's anything but oven-ready, so both sides are slogging it out. So the UK and the EU are both guilty of obduracy. Boris Johnson's proposed the Internal Market Bill. The expert consensus is that would be a grave violation of international law. So Bojo's authorities leeching away. He's going to face a significant rebellion on the backbenches against the Internal Market Bill, all about commerce within the United Kingdom, between the mainland and Northern Ireland in particular. So Bojo also faces a formidable leader of the opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, who's got a razor-sharp QC's mind. That's Queen's Counsel, as in a barrister type of lawyer, and about the best 10% of them get to be QCs. So Bojo can't lay a glove on the Labour leader. All of a sudden, Boris Johnson's Oxford Union antics won't cut it. Anyway, he was Bojo the clown, but this is not a laughing matter, coronavirus. The joke is well and truly worn off. So you can be a staunch Conservative as I am, but not support him as an individual. Support the party despite and not because of the Prime Minister. And I recognise he's got his gifts. So Bojo got affianced a few months ago. His 30-something fiancée brought forth his sixth child. And as they're plighted, they like to have their wedding. You can't have a wedding with more than 15 guests in the midst of coronavirus. Anyway, he caught coronavirus himself through failure to observe even the most basic guidelines. Back in March, he was contemptuously dismissing the idea of eschewing handshaking. He survived, but the health repercussions can be lifelong. So he faces an awful situation on all fronts in terms of the economy, Brexit, the unity of the UK, coronavirus, education. It's an omnishambles. It's nightmare on Downing Street, and there's really nothing good on the horizon. Maybe he gets his trade deal with the European Union, or maybe he doesn't, but he gets magnificent deals with other countries. But that looks unlikely, because Democrats in the United States have said if this deal harms the Republic of Ireland in any way, they won't agree to a trade deal with the UK. Remember, the Democrats already have the House of Representatives, and looks like they're going to take the Senate and possibly the presidency. So Bojo's not so cocksure anymore. So Bojo can cast his mind forward to November 2024, when the next dissolution of Parliament is due. The UK underwent 3 elections in 4 years, so nobody wants another early election. The horizon is full of gathering storm clouds, and most of these were authored by Bojo himself. So Alexander Boris de Pfeffel Johnson does not want to go down in history as someone who led the Tory party to his worst drubbing since John Major. But there is an alternative which is open to Bojo. As a classical scholar, he might want to go and do what we've done, like the Roman, and fall upon his sword. That might be the most honourable course open to him. Like David Cameron in 2016, he may calculate, fuck this for a game of soldiers. He has conquered his Everest. So why not go off and do something far less stressful and far more remunerative? He can be a showman, that's what he always was, jetting around the world, orating for telephone figure fees. So if he were to resign or to be booted out by an increasingly mutinous 1922 committee, it would create a job vacancy at number 10. Who would be apt to fill the office of First Lord of the Treasury? Now, my hunch is Rishi Sunak, a 40-year-old born in Hampshire, United Kingdom, the son of bourgeois Indian immigrants. He grew up in a solidly middle-class family. His father's a doctor, his mother's a pharmacist, but they didn't have staggering money, better off than most people. He had no elite connections, so he showed academic promise early, and because this shone through, he won a scholarship to Winchester College, one of the most estimable schools in the Commonwealth. It's founded in 1382 by King Richard II to create leaders in church and state, and it's fashioned a few. So it's an academic hothouse. Its motto is "Manners maketh the man." Good motto for anyone. So it's founded by a bishop named William of Wykeham, and because he's of Wykeham, the boys of this college are known as Wykhamists, not Winchesterians or something. So Winchester has a reputation for producing serious-minded, unshowy sorts, civil servants, city solicitors, scientists, and the like. So the school's got all the virtues of Eton without any of its stratospheric conceit. Anyway, it hasn't produced a front-rank politician since the days of Geoffrey Howe. He who was being attacked by him was like being savaged by a dead sheep, as Dennis Healey memorably put it. So though Winchester's 58 years older than Eton, it has only produced one prime minister to Eton's 20. Henry Addington is the only Wykehamist who ever made it to 10 Downing Street. So Addington was distinguished by being undistinguished, the son of a doctor when that was considered to be very under by the patricians. As one Regency wag put it in a bit of doggerel, Pitt is to Addington as London is to Paddington, Pitt being a rather more notable Tory Prime Minister. Well, arguably Tory. So anyway, Rishi has shown that quiet determination which is so characteristic of his school. He rose to be head boy. He then won a place to read philosophy, politics, and economics at Oxford, PPE. That subject is de rigueur for political doyens of his generation, like the brothers Miliband, David Cameron, and so forth. So Rishi went up to Lincoln College, Oxford in 98. It's a small and unpretentious yet ancient college, and it suited him to a T. So Rishi avoided AUCA like the plague. That's Oxford University Conservative Association and all the japes they would get up to, which probably make bad PR for him. Didn't want to be associated with them. He never showed his face in union politics. He put his head down. He studied like a demon. So his efforts were crowned with a double first, as in first in his first class degree in his first year exams and his finals. That's equivalent of like summa cum laude in the American system. So under 10% of people would get that. So after varsity, Rishi joined a bank, and his ferocious work ethic was earning him millions by the time he was 30. So he took a 2-year career break to collect an MBA at Stanford. He also bagged an Indian billionaire's daughter, and the newlyweds were soon blessed with a brace of daughters. So shortly after he turned 30, this frighteningly successful young man decided he wanted to enter the political forum. So he embarked on public life. He was able to retire at 30 and devote himself entirely to his political ambitions. He'd already netted a fortune. So he's debonair, good-looking, suave, genuine, circumspect, diligent. He's got all the attributes of a consummate politician. Mr. Sunak's got placidity and poise. So try as the reptiles might, these Fleet Street sleuth hounds can't found any dirt on Rishi, because there are no skeletons in his cupboard. He was known to abstain from drug use at Oxford. He seldom drinks. He keeps fit. He's maritally faithful, and on and on. He's a Hindu, so I'm not sure he might not dine on kine. Anyway, ere long he was selected for the ultra-safe Conservative constituency of Richmond in Yorkshire, not Richmond upon Thames. So William Hague, the former Tory leader, was standing down from the House of Commons. So Hague had won Richmond even in 1997, which was annus horribilis for the Conservative and Unionist Party. Even a donkey could win Richmond, so long as he's wearing a blue rosette, and Rishi Sunak is no donkey. So the Sunaks purchased a stately home in Yorkshire. So the people of the God's own county, they named him the Maharaja of Yorkshire because of the princely style in which this British Indian lives. But one of the few criticisms of him is he's perhaps a bit too flash with his cash. So Mr. Sunak's ethnicity helps him, frankly. The UK is 20% non-white, and due to be much more so, about 40% of babies born in the United Kingdom this year will be non-white. So this is the browning of Britain. The non-white minority is growing and growing rapidly. So it's only right that a non-white person become Prime Minister at some point. So the Conservative Party is not doing well amongst ethnic minorities. Labour's polling much more strongly amongst ethnic minorities. British Indians are one of the few ethnic minority groups which are a bit more inclined to the Conservative Party than the others. So as the percentage of ethnic minority people grows and grows, it means Labour will have an ever-increasing advantage. So the Conservatives desperately need to arrest this decline, amongst their ethnic minority support. Well, not decline, it's always been low. They need to reverse this trend. And it behoves the Tory party to prove its anti-racialist credentials. Now, already 2 of the 3 great offices of state are filled by ethnic minority people, as in to say, the Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Home Secretary. So Rishi Sunak is a safe pair of hands, if there was one. He's an effectual but not a dazzling orator. Bojo's mirth can make the House of Commons rock with laughter, but the country needs a PM and not a stand-up comedian. So coronavirus has been an economic catastrophe, and Sunak has been obliged to take some bold measures, arguably unwise measures. The UK economy is contracted by an eye-watering 20%. That's like the worst since the 1930s. And I know it's been bad for every country, but it's been worse for the United Kingdom than almost anywhere else. So Sunak has thrown money at the problem. Even a monetarist becomes a Keynesian under such circumstances. But high-spending policies have mitigated the calamity, not prevented it. Even Sunak said he cannot save every job and he cannot rescue every business. So there's already carping on the Tory backbenches saying that he's been profligate. How on earth will this debt ever be repaid? Raising tax on the affluent goes against the grain for Conservatives. Slashing public services would be an electoral disaster. There's simply no good options. It's a matter of choosing the least calamitous. So Sunak pursues this hard-headed, problem-solving, pragmatic approach to politics. He's unideological. So he's not one to go in for the operatics of Bojo or these quixotic ideas like Kanzuk. So other Tory MPs may chase rainbows, but the banker in Sunak is saying, well, we've got to seek the maximum profit at the minimum risk. That's the sweet spot, but it's a very difficult equilibrium to find. He's inherited a hospital pass of a situation. He's performed admirably, considering. He's won acclaim from even the financial press corps. So it's been a bravura year for the Chancellor, admittedly in dreadful circumstances. But supposing Bojo were to tender his resignation to Her Britannic Majesty, who else would throw his hat into the ring for the top job? Well, other contenders would now, but no doubt, be Priti Patel, Dominic Raab, Michael Gove, and probably Jeremy Hunt. So Gove, remember him, the stealthy Tove who poignarded Boris Johnson in the back in 2017. And despite his utter lack of contrition, Bojo completely forgave Michael Gove and brought him on board as the Lord Chancellor. So Gove may well have had his day. The oleaginous Aberdonian has no following in the party. Think of Dominic Raab, the Foreign and Commonwealth Secretary. He's got kudos for the way he's handled his incredibly difficult brief. He stood for the leadership last time. He's about the right age. He's scandal-free. He's on the bland side, but then so is Sunak. But Raab, I think, would be a contender. Didn't he come third last time? Think about Priti Patel. I think she's a runner and not, sorry, a rider and not a runner, because she's balls up all the portfolios. She had to resign in disgrace once, this MP for Witham, over a trip to Israel that she didn't inform her civil servants about it. The sky is full of chickens coming to roost for her. People have caned her for saying she would end some sort of immigration scheme that her parents used. So what? She's not her parents. Her parents got in that. Should they've got in that way? Maybe yes, maybe no. But just let's say it was right in the 70s. Doesn't prove it's right now. And if it was wrong in the 70s, doesn't make it right now either. We're allowed to change policy. She might have thought it was the wrong policy. Her parents might have gone in through a different policy if that one hadn't existed at the time. No, she is not obliged to approve of what her parents did decades ago. What they did was completely lawful in coming to the United Kingdom. They're not bad people at all. Anyway, she's the only female contender. And so her vote share would not be derisory. That would be rather bad optics if it were. So Hunt is a serious contender. I think Priti Patel is not, even though she will get more than a few votes. Now, Jeremy Hunt has maintained a canny silence on the contentious issue for a long while, and that's precisely, well, because he's biding his time. The Admiral's son wants another bite of the cherry. He thinks that Boris will balls it up royally, and Jeremy Hunt seems competent, but he can't even remember his wife's nationality. He said that she was Japanese. Some Tories have even said he's a security risk because his wife's a China woman, as in she could be an agent for Beijing. But anyway, I think Sunak remains the most likely leader. He's just the right age, reasonably experienced, looks the part, got everything going for him really, got no significant weaknesses. But as Harold Wilson said, a week is a long time in politics. Either Hunt or Raab could come out on top. So Hunt, Raab and Sunak, I think those are the serious candidates. But Sunak's easily young enough to have another 2 decades in politics. If he doesn't win the leadership this time, he could have another go later. So, but would he even want the leadership and the prime ministership right now? It might seem like a poisoned chalice because the situation is so dreadful. Perhaps he thinks it's better to let Hunt or Raab have it in 2021, and they can lead the Conservatives into a heavy defeat in 2024. Sunak can then win the leadership and bring the Conservative Party back into government the following election. But opportunity knocks. It might not knock again. William Hague, does he regret getting the Conservative leadership in 97? Was it premature? If he hadn't got it then, he might never have got it. Anyway, so there's a chance an alternative Conservative Prime Minister could pull a rabbit out of the hat and win in 2024. The economy might recover marvellously. Brexit could turn out to be a rip-roaring success. Frankly, I don't see either of those transpiring. But anyway, if another Conservative leader wins in 2024, Sunak's big moment might have gone, and he never had a chance to make a grab for the big prize. But in 2024, it's difficult to see Labour winning outright because they have a mere 130 and some odd seats. You need 326 to form a majority in the House of Commons. But bear in mind, exclude the Speaker and about 8 Sinn Féin MPs. So in reality, you might need 320. So Labour would need to win something like 185 seats in a single election. That's a very tall order indeed. Nobody's ever done it. But hey, unprecedented things happen. Anyway, the Conservatives have a grim task ahead of them. In all areas of policy, the government is struggling. and they are afraid of Sir Keir Starmer, and the public is not put off by him. He's not toxic like Corbyn was, because Sir Keir's got a distinguished career in public service as head of the Crown Prosecution Service before he even entered the political arena. It's hard for the Tory propaganda machine to depict a knight as a revolutionary. So Labour is not so mutinous. There's only a little grumbling on the backbenches. He can't be portrayed as loony left. He's actually more popular than his party. He's a vote winner. He pulls them up. He doesn't pull them down. So after 14 years, people might be sick of conservatism. If Labour doesn't win outright, it might need to make an arrangement with one of the other parties. Now the forming a coalition with the Liberal Democrats, the most blatant solution. The Lib Dems have a mere 11 seats. They're just a football team, no reserves. This minnow of the party, they might win 20 seats next time. I mean, they can scarcely go down because their vote share went up a bit last time. They were a bit unlucky with the breakdown of it. But what's their pitch? Equidistant between Labour and the Conservatives. There's not much room there. And people are kind of ignoring them because of coronavirus. They posed as the absolute Remainers last time. Okay, that policy had clarity, but it failed miserably. They can't pose as Remainers again. I don't think that's really going to work. I mean, unless the Brexit is an absolute calamity. So the Lib Dems seem to have run out of ideas. Sir Ed Davey is amiable and plausible, but forgettable. He's got Asian experience, but he's completely lacking in gravitas or charisma. The Liberal Democrats, they garner even precious little media coverage. They're almost an electoral irrelevance. So would the Lib Dems even go into coalition with Labour if offered? Well, this is the thing. They might say, well, perhaps not, because remember we did that with the Conservatives last time, and remember what happened after that. Many Lib Dems opposed it. The Lib Dems lost 2/3 of their vote share. They achieved only a little in terms of policy when they're in government with the Conservatives, and they still haven't recovered from their 2015 defeat. Nowhere near. Remember they were getting 23% of the vote in 2005, almost that much in 2010. They're now about 8%. So anyway, but they might say, well, we have to get the Conservatives out, so maybe we'll help Labour. But if they having propped up the Tories, they propped up Labour, they might seem like complete tarts getting into bed with this one and then that one. But is that sufficiently long ago that people would forgive them? Possibly. The Tories might demand and receive a second referendum on the alternative vote as their price of getting into government with Labour. And I think Labour would grant it, actually, because that might lose again. Or they could just make the change. You don't actually have to have a referendum. And then they might say, well, the Conservatives never be in government again, because who'll go into coalition with them? So the SNP is the only other party which could assist Labour. The Scottish National Party could offer confidence and supply. I don't see them going into coalition or wanting to, because they oppose the very idea of a United Kingdom government. So the SNP would demand as their price a second referendum on separation. Now, Labour doesn't want to sunder the union any more than the Conservatives do. That's not entirely altruistic. Remember, Labour used to win scores of seats in North Britain. So Labour is feeble north of Hadrian's Wall, but they think that things must come full circle. The SNP is very popular at the moment, but what goes up must come down. The SNP can only define political of gravity for so long. Is that 5 years or is that 20 years? We don't know. But if Labour regains its former standing in Scotland, then that's a game changer. Remember when the Tories were extinct as a parliamentary party in Caledonia for several years. And now the Tory party is a force to be reckoned with. So they were like Lazarus. Anyway, the Democratic Unionist Party got 10 seats to offer at most. Many in Labour consider them to be toxic. So Labour held some behind-the-scenes talks with the DUP in 2010 with a view to confidence and supply, but it came to nothing. So time to think the unthinkable. In 2024, there's a serious chance that the SNP might be kingmaker. Would Labour and then the Conservatives be willing to sink their differences and work together in some kind of coalition, with Labour as the main government and the Tories as the junior partner, for the good of the nation and to keep the UK intact? Such a solution must not be ruled out. It might be the only means of preserving the Union. In the Republic of Ireland are two major parties, Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. They've been opponents for a century, but they both grew out of Sinn Féin. After 100 years of a schism, the two parties chose to work together. Ironically enough, to oppose Sinn Féin. If they can do it, then the UK's two great parties of state can do it. The Irish parties have even contemplated a merger. In Northern Ireland, the DUP and Sinn Féin worked together, and they were at each other's throats in the 90s. I mean, almost literally. So a Labour-Tory coalition would be a piece of the brave. Could people find the maturity and the wisdom to make it work? If so, it would need a man as decent as Sunak to do so, someone who's not sectarian or partisan. Some in Labour find the Tories vile. Remember what Nye Bevan said, "I assure confidence of my deep, burning hatred for the Tory party, whom I consider lower than vermin." So many of the Labour rank and file might not wear such an agreement and resign in disgust, join the Lib Dems or some far-left party. So anyway, I still think Sunak will be the UK's next Prime Minister. Within a year, there he will be, Prime Minister of the UK. So what do you think? Answers at a postcard. Am I wrong? Bojo's insists he's not going to resign. Well, of course he's going to say that, because he'd immediately cut his own throat if he said that he was. I could be mistaken, but that's the rumour out there. It could be people who want to make it a self-fulfilling prophecy and destroy his chances. Okay, thank you so much. If you like the channel, please donate, because I urgently need donations to get the channel going. George Callahan 79 @gmail.com. That's on PayPal. Good night.